Hey there everybody, it's markcrilley. I'm back with another How to Draw video. Today we're going to be learning how to draw Goku from the incredibly popular manga and anime series Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball Z, I suppose I should say, depending on what country you're in. We got two boxes here, perfect squares. Some people like to know what the size is, and I'll just tell you it's 2 1/4 inches on all sides, which works out to just a little bit over 5.5 centimeters, but really you can make it any size you want. Let's go ahead and get in some basic guidelines. Alright, so you can see I started with what really begins as a perfect circle almost, occupying, I'd say, a little more than 2/3 of this space left to right, and the circle curves all the way around. Down here is where you really want to be careful to try to replicate this shape of his cheek, the sort of contour of his face, and if you look at the space created here, this shape, that might help you for locating that. But again, like the tip of the chin comes in, I would say, pretty neatly at the 1/3 point, maybe just a little less. And then curving back up here, we're going to be heading up towards his ear, which we're going to draw later on. In fact, why don't we draw it right now? So I decided after I drew the ear to go ahead and get in this lower line. This is a guideline for placing the lower eyelashes of each eye. And you can see it's at a considerable angle because his whole head is going to be tilted a little bit the way I'm drawing him. Now I'm going to go ahead and put in two lines. One is going to be a sort of vertical line for helping us place the nose and mouth. And then a sort of curving down line that will be for his eyebrows. Okay, so you can see this line is pretty near to the far edge of his face. And then, interestingly, this pointing down line of the eyebrows is actually not meeting up with that, you know, in the center. It's actually is slightly off to the left. That's because this line is actually going to help us place the point of his nose, which is rather pointy, I must say, compared to different manga styles that I've encountered over the years. Let's go ahead and see if we can zoom in a little and get into the details of the facial features. Alright, so let's go ahead and get in the eyes, and pay attention to the distance from the ear over just a little bit here. This is where we're going to begin indicating the far edge of one of his eyes. And the other one is going to be really way over here, quite close to the contour line of his face. Now, very frequently, Goku has these, what I guess we would call angry-looking eyebrows. And indeed, he's frequently angry, so that makes sense. But this time, I'm not giving him a really angry expression. It's going to be more of a look of confidence, almost a little bit of a smirk, you know, a sly sort of a look. Anyway, the eyebrows are, in most of the illustrations I saw, very much like extended triangles. And fairly simple, I would think, to draw, so hopefully no problems there. I'm going to go ahead and have this eyebrow triangle thing extend all the way over to the edge of the face. But what I want to do now is erase away some of that initial guideline, and indeed also erase away a bit of this line here, although that can help us with drawing the hair later on. And what I'm going to do is go ahead and put a little bit of a hook here at the end of this one eyebrow. And if you want to, I suppose you could also put a hook at the end of that other eyebrow. But this, you know, it's sort of the furrowing of the brow. And I'm going to erase away. I know it's sort of funny to think, why are you putting down lines and then erasing them away? What's the point of having the line? Well, it does help you to see how these, you know, get these two lower eyelash lines to line up. You know, I often hear from people who have trouble getting eyes to match one another, you know. And I think that happens when you draw them one at a time without coordinating. By putting in this base guideline, we are sort of coordinating the two eyes so that they will line up. Anyway, the lower eyelash, you know, it sort of connects to this outline of the rest of the eye over here, and it begins to head over across, and then it just sort of fades away. And the same thing happens over here, but in the opposite direction. Very much compressed in this 3/4 point of view. So this eye is going to be considerably larger looking over here than this one. I'm going to go ahead and put in the ovalish circles of his irises. And they are quite simple. In fact, this whole lesson, I'm trying to keep it simple. I saw a comment on my previous video of someone saying, can you do a video with no markers and no gouache, please? Because I don't have markers and I don't have gouache. And I thought, hey, that's a fair point. Let's have, every once in a while, videos that don't require a lot of different materials. And so this one is going to be pretty much only pencils. I have left this line in place here, though, because it's pretty crucial to get the tip of the nose in just the right place. So having put that line in place, I can come over here and kind of extending from where that line used to be, before I so rudely erased it, I'm going to come over here and draw this pointy Goku nose, which was one of the most striking things about the design to me. And it may have to do with the creator, Akira Toriyama, having his own distinctive drawing style, or it may have to do with the age of the series, and that noses were more commonly drawn this way back in, I believe it was 1984 when this first started. But anyway, quite a defined, not pointy in the sense of coming to an absolute sharp-edged point like a pin or something like that, but just sort of protruding from the face rather more than I see a lot of manga noses in different series. So this line, again, is going to help me for placing the mouth. Pay attention to how close the mouth is to the nose. This was another thing that I noticed that I thought was rather distinctive. The mouth, in most of the illustrations I saw, quite close to the nose, leaving this big gap down to the chin. And I'm trying very carefully to erase away that guideline, although it does serve, as you can notice, as a way of placing that other edge of the mouth. It sort of lines up with the tip of the nose. And indeed, this placement of the iris, all three of these things sort of line up right along that initial guideline. I'm going to drop in just a little hint of shadow beneath the lower lip. And I should probably wait until later, but there are going to be blushies. Never fear, folks. There are actually Akira Toriyama blushies on this character. Let's go ahead and do the ear while we're at this. And one thing I noticed, which was really quite interesting to me, is that the anatomy of the ear for Goku is very close to accurate human anatomy, which is sort of intriguing because... it is a fairly cartoony character, even by manga standards, and yet the ear, very close, very, following the rules of drawing ears. Whereas if you look at a lot of much less cartoony characters, very often the ears are done in a very stylized way that don't actually resemble the structure of the human ear. I think it's time now, though, to get back to some basic guidelines, and I think I'll put in the guidelines of the neck, and then we can move on to putting in some guidelines for the hair. Okay, so I decided to go ahead and also get the lines of the shoulders in place, but notice that this first line of the neck begins just here at the bottom of the earlobe. You want to come a little off to the left of where the jaw starts. Curves down and passes the bottom line of that square that we drew to begin with. Then the shoulder, you want to get that angle of the line just right, and the width, particularly from one shoulder to the other. He has very broad shoulders. Very important part of the character, and having these lines in place can help you sort of see how much further you need to extend these lines of the shoulder past that initial square. I would say almost reaching to the halfway point of this second square over there. Oh, and then another nifty thing is that this shoulder line really connects exactly with that first line of the square there, and then this neck seems to me sort of pointing up towards the one edge of his mouth there. Speaking of the mouth, I feel like I overdid his smirk a little. I over-smirked it. And so I'm going to backpedal a little and have that not be quite so intense. Let's go ahead then and get some basic guidelines for the hair. And be warned, this is going to look kind of silly, but there is method to my madness, I promise. All right, well, the first thing you notice when you see Goku is his incredible spiky hair, which presents challenges to the artist. It's tempting to just draw them randomly, but there is sort of a system to these spikes of hair. And so I've put in a basic system here to help us understand where the spikes go. And you can see these two lines that sort of curve in parallel to one another. This one stopping right around the left-hand side of that box. This one kind of crossing well over it, and then is sort of the halfway point there. Then this curving line down here will eventually help us find 1, 2, 3, 4 different points of these 4 spikes of hair that come out here on this side of the head. But I want to continue the process before we get to that by drawing the much larger basic guideline for the spikes over here. Okay, so as I said, kind of crazy looking. It looks as if there's an enormous, I don't know, clamshell coming out of his head. But this is going to help us find the points of 5 different spikes of hair over here. Well, let's go ahead and go back, and in real time, I want to show you my system for drawing, as I said, 4 smaller spikes here. And, you know, again, having this guideline is going to help us get into place, but you also want to pay some attention to this left-hand edge of the box, because that's going to also play a role in getting these spikes, the shape of them, the size of them in the right location. So let's go ahead and continue coming across here. In fact, well, maybe what I'll do is I'll have the 1 point here, and I'll go ahead and put a dot, you know, to sort of help you see what I'm going to be heading towards. We'll put another one here, and then this right here becomes the point of that one. So this is just a system for helping you get these spikes in the right place. Now, any of you who are watching this and saying, this is ridiculous, you don't need guidelines to draw spikes, then, you know, you can just skip that part of the video. But this is for those of you who are like me, sort of obsessed with having your drawing really look like the authentic illustration by Akira Toriyama. So that's what this is all about. It's all in the service of getting accuracy, you know, making this as authentic looking as possible. But you can see that basically these spikes of hair, the triangles, these sort of curving triangles, are this one touching the line, these two going across it. And then once you've got that in place, you can go ahead and erase that curving line that helped us place those, and now it's looking considerably less ridiculous and a little more like actual Goku hair. Now I'm going to come over here on the other side and do the same thing, although in this case we are going for 5 different spikes. And this first one is very narrow compared to the other ones. Just sort of a spike of hair that comes off here. And this is where we want to come over and really start making these gigantic ones. I'd say there's a point here that's going to come to a point here, and then maybe sort of split the difference 1, 2 for finding these other, the tips of these other 2 spikes of hair. I'm going to go ahead and start right here and have a curving line, sort of gently curving, almost looks like a shark's fin, the curve of this line. And then this one, watch how you do this. It's not coming back down here. It's sort of pointing down into a space in between. You know, it's not really heading down towards his hair. This whole thing creates, I would say, just a very dramatic and easily recognizable contour. Almost a silhouette, you know. You would know that it's this character without even seeing the details of the face. And I know that some cartoonists advise that, you know, when you're designing a character. Your character should have such a distinctive silhouette that people could recognize the character just from seeing the outline, the shape that they make against a white background behind them. Anyway, I'm having this last curving line come down and touch that point. And then what I'm going to do here is just sort of carve off one last little sliver here, and that's going to create that 5th spike of hair. Quite short, really, compared to the other ones. And maybe when I erase this guideline, you'll see what I mean here, that there's this sort of shorter spike of hair that comes out. And that basically is going to do it. I'll go ahead and, in time-lapse, I'm going to go ahead and erase some of these guidelines. All right, so I erased the guidelines, and you probably noticed that I also decided to redraw this line here. Something about the shape was not looking quite right to me, a little too chunky looking. So what I'm going to do is zoom in again, and we can get the spikes of hair that come down across his forehead. All right, now I feel like you don't need to be quite so fastidious about these spikes of hair. In terms of having the exact number and so forth. Most of the illustrations that I saw seem to have two spikes over here on his temple, and then just maybe a variety. I'm going to go for like 3 or 4 coming down across his forehead. His forehead is mostly concealed by the hair, but it does sort of peek through. And one thing that I'm going to be doing in just a moment is showing how there are extra lines of almost looks like an individual hair coming out. And I'm going to erase that initial guideline of the shape of the head. It just sort of helped us get things in the right place, but it is no longer needed. Be gone, unnecessary guideline. And you can see we're starting to get the sort of basic look of Goku now. But it's not going to be complete until we get some of the details of the clothing and the musculature of his neck. So let's go ahead and refocus so that we can get both of those in place. All right, well, I'm going to put in a few basic guidelines for the clothing, but then I promise that will be it for the guidelines in this video. All right, so as you can see, these guidelines are for showing his 2 different layers of clothing. He's got this outer layer of clothing that is orange colored, and then underneath this dark blue sort of undershirt type of layer. And I'm going to go ahead and add an extra line here that will be for the sleeve. Almost looks like a t-shirt the way it's being drawn, though. I'm pretty sure it's not a t-shirt within the lore of Dragon Ball Z. In any case, I'm taking those initial guidelines and I'm building off of them to add a little more cloth-like detail to this sleeve. Hopefully people will appreciate this part of the video being real-time. Otherwise, you will be drifting off to sleep during this section, but I'm taking that curve of the shoulder there and having this outer layer kind of break free of it, and you just see these extra lines on the outside that sort of show the opposite surface, the interior surface of that cloth. And I noticed, interestingly, on quite a lot of different drawings that there was this contour up here for the clothing tended to get a wrinkle, a sort of steadfast wrinkle that was always there, right near the edge of the cloth, kind of heading up towards his neck. There always seemed to be one loyal, persistent wrinkle that would form right around there. And of course that means we want to do the same thing over here. So I'm going to erase just a little bit so as to produce this mirror image wrinkle that forms over here. Not sure if that's in absolutely every drawing of Goku, but I was surprised how many I saw that had it. And, you know, if you want to, you can just sort of add secondary wrinkles here and there. You do want to be careful and not overdo it. But this, you know how this one broke free of that contour? I think we kind of want to do the same thing over here so that it gives that feeling of being an outer layer of clothing. And then you could go ahead and draw, as we did over here, a sort of secondary interior. To me, again, it sort of looks like a t-shirt sleeve almost. And I feel like this could benefit from a couple of more wrinkles as well. But let's get on to drawing the muscles of the neck. And it occurs to me that among manga characters, Goku's neck is actually very important, it seems to me, a very distinctive part of drawing the character. Hard for me to think of very many manga anime characters where the neck plays a role, an important role in the design, but I do believe Goku is one of them. Maybe also Ichigo from Bleach. The neck is given a lot of prominence. And I mean, just in terms of width, he may have the widest of all manga characters' necks. Anyway, of the famous ones. So anyway, I put in this line here that's for the collarbone, and very you know, harshly delineated. It's drawn in such a way as if it was really chiseled out of stone almost. And once you've got that, I mean, this line here is not the musculature. This is the interior or the edge of his shirt. This is supposed to be the line of his collarbone. And then we have, as in real life, real human anatomy, there's this sort of V that forms here of muscles that come up along the neck just underneath the skin and tend to be very visible in men, especially athletic men, as is the case certainly with Goku. And so we're getting lots of extra lines in here for delineating the musculature there, suggesting intense muscles there. And I guess I should go ahead now and erase the lower edge of that square. It served us well, but we must bid you adieu. So anyway, having got that these lines in place, I think we're real near to being able to pull out the trusty black Prismacolor, do the final line work, and then I guess the last thing will be adding some shading. Certainly there's going to be a lot of that when it comes to drawing his hair. But for now, let's go ahead and just cover over every one of these lines with the black Prismacolor colored pencil, and then we'll be back to do some of the shading. All right, now I wanted to say about Goku's hair in terms of coloring it in that you really could just color the whole thing in black and be quite authentic, because the printed manga page very often just has, you know, the entire thing is just solid black. But what I'm going to do is separate off a few areas to make them kind of dark gray and give a sort of sculptural form to this hair. But most of it really is going to be just jet black. I'm going to have to really push down on the black Prismacolor and just go completely solid with the black. But you can see the locations of these areas that are going to be a little lighter, but thankfully do not really require highlights or gouache or anything like that, like I very often do. Although some people, my gouache fans out there, will be just crushed when they hear that I'm not using gouache this time. Gouache will be back, don't worry, folks. The valiant return. Anyway, let me go ahead, and there's really not much to the technique in terms of just blackening this in, but I do want to sort of give you a sense of how I'm roping off these areas that are going to be dark gray rather than black, and then that just shows me, okay, I won't be darkening in within that little sliver of space there, but everything else can just go black. Maybe it would be wise to do the similar thing up here so that all of these spikes sort of echo one another. So I'll be doing the same thing. You kind of get the basic idea. I certainly don't want to waste everyone's time by showing me blacken in this whole area with the Prismacolor. That just doesn't even make sense. I mean, there's no technique to see. I'm just pushing down hard and being careful to stay within the lines. But I did want to show you the effect that I'm going to go for in terms of taking these little slivers of space and switching back to the Dixon Ticonderoga, which really is just a fairly ordinary number 2 pencil, although it is of pretty good quality. And you can see the effect that we're going to get there. It's going to sort of make these spikes a little more 3D looking. But as far as coloring in hair goes, compared to a lot of the videos that I've done, this one is going to be quite easy. In fact, it may hold the record for easiest shading of any hair that I've done in any of these videos, with possible exception of chibi videos, and even then I'm not sure. But you get the basic idea. There's no reason for me to do this real time. I'm going to go ahead and do the whole rest of the hair in time-lapse, and then we'll come back and maybe get into the shading of the face, the muscles, and the clothing. Alright, well, before we finish with the hair, I did want to show you that there are these stray, almost like single hair lines, and you have to be confident as you drop these in. very hard to do that in a smooth way, but I think you kind of have to do it in a one single stroke. Let's see if I can pull this off. And I guess a last one would go right here. And yeah, so that was just a little detail that I noticed with the hair there, those little stray single threads, I guess you would call them. And now it's time to come down here and add a little bit of shading. Mainly to the neck, I would say, is where I want to get some shading in here. So I switched to my black, not my black person, I switched to my Ticonderoga, my sort of number 2 pencil here, to add a little shading. Very often, if you're looking at the manga, you know, there's not a whole lot of shading to emulate. Now, if you're looking at the anime version, you're going to see considerably more shadows. And so I'm kind of doing a hybrid here, a mix between what you might see in the anime version and the manga version. I'm adding just a little. I guess I've decided that some of the light is coming, you know, mainly from above. I guess I should really technically be coming, because I put some over here, should be coming from over here. But I'm going to kind of cheat it and just say it's sort of vaguely coming from above. So I'm going to put in a little bit of extra shadow here on these muscles. It's sort of interesting that he has such pronounced neck muscles, especially when you think about some manga characters having really sort of pencil neck, kind of super narrow neck, you know, the proportions. Where certainly with this character, massive neck in width, and then all the muscles calling attention to it. So I'm going to go ahead and holding my pencil kind of low to the page, so as to get a very wide area of the lead touching the paper. Go back and forth to start adding a sort of mid-tone here. Of course, it symbolizes orange. If I had done this video full color, it would probably look even more like the real Goku, because we do sort of associate that bright orange color and dark blue undershirt, you know, color scheme with him. But again, like I said, I wanted to do something that did not require people to run out and get markers or, you know, whatever, watercolor, even gouache, much as I would like every boy and girl in the world to have their very own gouache. Yes, I dream of the day when that occurs, but I've decided this time to keep it simple. This is old school Crilly we're doing here. But I guess, you know, rather than do this all real time, how about if I show you the basic, you know, putting down this basic layer here as a single tone, and then my approach would be to go on top of that to create secondary shadows to accentuate the cloth. Normally I'm a stickler for light source and so forth, but I've kind of tossed that out the window a little bit with this video, and I'm just sort of adding shadows on the lower edges of things. And you get the basic idea. Now, the other thing that I wanted to point out before I wind things down is that the undershirt being kind of a dark blue, if you are going to do this in pencil the way I'm doing it, you're going to want to push down quite a bit more and get, you know, just a good contrast there. I don't think you have to worry about this reading as black. Certainly compared to his hair, it's always going to be a little more of like a dark gray. But if you are going to, you know, try to replicate the contrast, you have to kind of go for it, or else we don't see that you're trying to, you know, present two different colors. Even though they, by necessity with pencil, it's just two different shades of gray. These days you can't say the phrase shades of gray without people thinking of a certain book series and movie. Far be it for me to be promoting such things on my channel. In any case, you can see me adding on top of this a little extra shadow onto the wrinkles, much as I did here, but you're going to have to push down even more, really, to get that kind of shading to stand out against the quite dark base layer that you've put in there. Anyway, hopefully that gives you all you need to see in real time. I'm going to go ahead and in time-lapse finish off this shading of the cloth, and then we'll be back with a few final words. Alright, well there's my video on drawing Goku from Dragon Ball Z. I hope you enjoyed this video, but of course it can't be done until I add the blushies, and interestingly there are blushies in most illustrations of Goku, and they are very sort of horizontal in nature. So for once I'm actually, you know, the blushies become a part of the lesson almost. If you want your drawing to look like Goku, you do have to do these sort of very narrow and stretched out blushies way up just below the lower eyelash. Well, let me go ahead and grab my books and we can wind this video down. Always like to end my videos by thanking anyone who has supported me by getting any of my books like Brody's Ghost and Miki Falls, my 2 graphic novel series, as well as Mastering Manga and Mastering Manga 2, and coming out May 5th, The Realism Challenge. Very excited about this, and very soon indeed I've got an announcement to make about something available to people who pre-order this book. But for now, let me go ahead and lay down this pencil over here this time. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. I certainly enjoyed making it. Thanks for watching it, and I'll be back with another one real soon.